Hello and welcome to the TechGig podcast, everyone. I am your host Sukriti, and today I'm here to talk about how AI is revolutionizing the video conferencing at workplaces. So, video conferencing with AI is becoming a key innovation for workplaces. The video conference market is potentially growing, and it is expected to reach a CAGR of 9.9% from 2020 to 2027. Since the demand for video conferencing is booming, the video-enabled communications channel is quickly becoming a key component in maximizing productivity. And the video-based communication tools are the second most widely used digital communication channel. Traditional video conferencing is gradually becoming a thing of the past. As the world is shutting the doors because of the global medical emergencies like COVID-19, video conference tools are widely used by businesses, government, and the public. Businesses are aggressively leveraging this application to communicate with clients, marketers, and employees. The days where video conferencing was only used in large boardrooms for formal presentations and meetings are quickly becoming a commonplace for collaborations during, while we are promoting the remote work. Organizations are leveraging the AI-powered tools, are optimizing and existing operations and helping businesses staying ahead of the curves. In today's podcast, I have a very special guest from Logitech who will help us understand how AI is actually revolutionizing the entire video conferencing for workplaces. Folks, please join me in welcoming Anand Lakshmanan, Head of Video Collaboration India and Southwest Asia from Logitech. Welcome to the show, Anand.
Hi, Sukriti. Very glad to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me. And what a topic to discuss, and what a time to discuss that when the whole world is, very keen and planning to go back to offices. So, looking forward to having an interesting conversation, Sukriti.
So do I, Anand. I'm really, elated to have you here for this show, and I'm looking forward to some great insights and conversation when I'm going to ask you the questions. So let's quickly begin. So Anand, the first question that I would want to know, and I have for you, is how can AI make virtual connected experiences in the workplace more efficient in the coming future?
Very interesting question, Sukriti. Like you gave a preamble, and as we all know, we are at a stage where the pandemic kind of changed the way we work, the way we used to connect with people. In some cases, forever; in some cases, on a temporary basis. But nevertheless, there have been a lot of disruptions and changes that have happened to the way we were working, right? And given the fact that in the last 2 years, all of us have gone through if I can use the word stress in some sense, right? Because we were all putting in extra hours. We were all connecting with people whom we otherwise had never spoken to in our respective organizations. Some cases, things have become easy. Some cases, things have become more complicated. So people are really looking forward to continuing their experiences of being able to connect to people, but if possible in a far easier manner. So that's where AI comes in. AI is certainly going to make it easy for people. For example, if you look at things like RPA, there are organizations who have deployed robotic process automation to take away the mundane work that people were otherwise doing on a day-to-day basis. If you extend AI to, let's say, the video conferencing space, and today almost every person is using video on a day-to-day basis in some form or fashion, right? And earlier we had to do a lot of setting up, let's say, lights or audio to be seen well, to be heard well. But today, most of that job is done by AI, right? AI is making it possible. Light gets adjusted on its own. Noise gets canceled on its own. So, AI is definitely coming to our rescue. It's, being deployed across industries, across solutions, and it's only going to improve further, Sukriti.
Lovely. So, Anand, that was about the future that we speak of when it comes to AI and how it's aiding the entire visual conferences for workplaces and for everyone. What trends do you see in emerging in the new hybrid workplaces?
Great question. So, like I said, people have got used to remote working in the last 2 years, right? We all have got used to it. And we all have also realized that this is not going to go away. It's here to stay. And the world has given it a fantastic name, which is called hybrid working, which is we are going to be working from home for some part of the week, and the same work is going to happen from offices for a few days. So which means people are probably going to use different set of tools when they work from home, And the same people, when they move into offices, they're going to use a different set of tools. And this is precisely what people want to avoid, which is their experience. They want to have seamless experience irrespective of where they log in from. So a few trends that we are seeing: people want to use technology because they've all used it in the last 2 years and they have understood and benefited out of it, but they don't want it to be complicated, and it is possible, right? So this is one of the key expectations that people have, customers whom we speak to. And once people go back to work, right, they don't want meetings to be complicated. And I'm sure some of us can still remember, let's say 2019 and prior to that, we had video conference rooms in our offices which had this super complicated 1000-button remote control. And I don't know about some of our listeners, but I have been in situations where instead of logging into a meeting, because there were so many buttons, I disconnected everybody. So coming back, people want to use technology, but they want it to be very, very simple. And given that hybrid is here to stay, and we all got used to using cloud-based video collaboration platforms like let's say Zoom or Google or Microsoft, which is going to continue, the adoption is only going to improve, which means people are now looking at solutions that can work seamlessly with these things, right? The platforms. And then the way we have configured our video rooms, the meeting rooms have undergone a change. Once upon a time, there were probably 2-3 video conference rooms in our offices, but thanks to COVID, when we all go back now, there are going to be many small meeting rooms which are called as huddle rooms, let's say 2-3 seaters, many of them. The larger meeting rooms are going to be fewer, because I think even though there is a lot of improvement in the way we have handled COVID, vaccination has thankfully dramatically improved our immunity, and we are able to meet people face to face again. The social distancing and other protocols are not going to go away, which means that the number of smaller meeting rooms are only going to increase, and we need to adhere to those protocols, which means technology will have to enable those things. And there are things like IoT, for example, which is going to make some of these things possible. And finally, like I mentioned earlier, when people work from offices for a few days and home for a few days, there is again the need to have something that is easy to set up, easy to manage, easy to use. So all of these are going to be possible in future as well. And these are some of the expectations that we see coming in from customers as they plan their employees' return to offices.
So Anand, it's very interesting to see how times have changed, and how technology has been a great help in order to simplify things for us, which were really complicated maybe just 2 years back that we are speaking of. And the kind of innovation that we are seeing in today's time, it's very quick, and it's accelerating the entire process of catching up with the trends of the best technology possible. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. The next one is, how is the virtual conferencing actually adding value to businesses in today's telecommuting age?
Interesting question again. Just imagine if we did not have the kind of video collaboration tools that we all are used to today, what life would have been for us, continuing to do business the way we were doing it in 2019 and prior to that, right? It would have become so difficult for us to meet with customers, meet with partners, meet with vendors, and still do business with them if we did not have video. And video only has made it so easy. Yes, it still does not replace or substitute for a face-to-face meeting, but things have come pretty close to that, right? And with the workforce itself being distributed these days, people need instant meetings. They need on-demand collaboration with their colleagues. And some of these meetings are not planned. Right? That's how it used to be in a physical setting, right? You can always walk across the corridor, tap your colleague on the shoulder, ask him or her if he has time to discuss an important topic with you. How could you do this in a virtual setup, right? You still have to send invites. People have to have time available on their calendar. Things become a little more complicated, and that's where I think video plays a key role, right? Let's look at the modern workplace. It's all about collaboration, right? And video meetings facilitate group collaboration instantly. And thanks to, again, the cloud collaboration platforms, you can get onto a video meeting very, very quickly. What would make a difference is, I think, the experience that people get, even though the meetings are remote. People want to feel contributing to a discussion, and especially those who are logging in from remote locations. And that's going to be, again, a trend that we will see in future, right? No meeting is going to have everybody in the same physical setting. Meetings are always going to have some participants who are going to log in remotely from their homes, from hotel rooms, from customer locations, whatever is their setting. But every meeting is going to have some participants who are going to be together and some participants who are going to log in remotely. These people who log in remotely, we don't want them to feel left out. We want them to feel that they are contributing to the discussion as much as people in the physical setting. How do you make that happen, right? And at the same time, protecting your people who are logging in remotely. And there are privacy issues, there are data sovereignty issues. How do you ensure that the platform, the tools that you use provide the protection and the security that your people need, right? And at the end of the day, we are all worried about productivity. I'm sure we all have, in our respective organizations, gone through that motion initially when things started moving to homes. We all worried about whether things will be we will be able to achieve the same level of productivity, because in a physical setup, even though we were not monitored, there was some level of supervision that we were all subjected to. When things moved to homes, people obviously were not being supervised. How do we still achieve the same level of productivity, right? And now, overnight, when we moved meetings to people's homes, IT teams had the challenge of deploying tools at scale within no time, and more importantly, being able to manage them on a regular basis, right? So these are some of the challenges for different stakeholders, and this is where I think video is adding tremendous value, because in every aspect of what we spoke, right, video can be of immense help. So for example, right, there are tools today that come with solutions that companies like Logitech provide, where you can, sitting in any corner of the globe, have a view of your entire VC estate, okay, irrespective of how many locations, how many countries, you can have a single view. It tells you how many meeting rooms, how many meetings are happening, how many of them are audio only, how many of them are video, and more importantly, the boon for IT teams is these tools also help them manage this estate and provide the experience that people have come to expect of these remote tools. So video is all pervasive, Sukriti, and I don't think there is any going away. Thanks to, again, the service providers who have made high-speed internet available to all of us in almost all nooks and corners of the countries, we only see the adoption of video improving, and we are committed to making it absolutely easy for people.
Very interesting. So, Anand, you spoke about how Google, Microsoft, these people are actually enabling the cloud servicing for us, for organizations across the globe. Are cloud-based unified and integrated communication solutions going to be the new normal?
Without doubt, Sukriti. Great question. Without doubt, like I said, imagine a world where we have to struggle to set up meetings. I don't think any of us want to go back to that world, right? And thanks to the pandemic, thanks to these great companies, they have made setting up and participating in meetings so easy. And that is primarily because what was sitting in a physical room earlier is now accessible to all of us who have an internet connection. But like I mentioned, what would make the adoption enhanced, what would make it easy for people to adopt these tools is the experience, and the experience comes from a comprehensive set of tools besides the platforms that you use, because it's not just your own experience, right? The person or the people who are connecting with us from the far end also have to be able to see us clearly, be able to hear us well without any jitters, without any pixelation, right? And that's where endpoints, are very critical. They play a very, very important role. So while the cloud-based communication platforms are definitely here to stay, the adoption of those platforms, I think, will be significantly enhanced if people are able to use the right set of tools. And businesses will certainly look forward to these two coming together, because no IT team wants to be burdened with the responsibility of making the pieces of the puzzle talk to each other. For instance, when Logitech, let's say, introduces a new camera, by default, they are factory certified with these cloud collaboration platforms, because IT teams don't want to download software, configure them, make things work with each other, especially when people are working remotely, right? Where they do not have access to the IT support that was available when we were working in physical setups earlier from offices. So it becomes all the more important for things to be simple in terms of deployment and in terms of management. And we are doing our part by making sure that these endpoint devices are certified and integrated with these tools, so that when people connect these cameras to their laptops or when they go to use them in the rooms when they are working from offices, they really have nothing to do from their side, right? And the platform providers obviously are adding from their side. They are adding a lot of features and functionalities to make the experience of users better on a day-to-day basis by bringing in people who are connected with them virtually into something that looks like a physical setup where they are sitting next to them in the same room in different chairs, right? So there are views that you can configure. So all of these together will make the adoption better and make the experience for people very, very good. And these are emerging as we speak, right? The workforce collaboration platforms are emerging as the single source of information for most organizations. So it is critical for organizations to choose the right set of tools that will help their employees navigate their workday in a seamless fashion, so that collaboration is easier and thereby productivity is at its maximum.
Okay. And how can AI and video conferencing solutions be leveraged within workplaces to scale productivity?
Interesting, question again. Let me give you a few examples, Sukriti, right? So AI is being used in every possible aspect of our day-to-day life, right? For example, let's look at the video conferencing that we all do, right, today. Now, every meeting has more than a few participants, right? Very few meetings happen one-to-one. Most meetings are more than two people, and most tools available in the marketplace today look at making the speaker in any meeting visible to the participants, especially the remote participants. The world calls it as speaker tracking. But in a remote setup, I think it's equally important to understand the reaction or the response of people to points of discussion that is being made by different people. And if the cameras are, let's say, focusing only on the speaker, this so-called and very important non-verbal cues are missed out. And in a remote setup, it is so important, just because you are not sitting across the table, to the other person. So it is not only important to be able to see the person who's speaking, but it is equally important to get a view of people in the room, right? And that's where, for example, Logitech calls this as a right side. Okay, we provide a view of the room and thereby the other people in the the speaker. So you get to know the facial expressions, the body language, and all of the other non-verbal cues for points that are being discussed. Something like automated camera control, right? AI is being used today, and we call it the computer vision to auto frame people, right? And the right framing. If there are four people, all four want to be seen in the frame so that they feel equal participants in the meeting. And like I mentioned earlier, depending on the ambient light in the room, cameras are today intelligent enough to control the contrast, the brightness, and everything. And finally, if you look at AI being used in audio, most of these enterprise grade audio and video solutions available in the market today, especially the ones that we have introduced in the last 18 months. They all come with what the world has started calling as the noise cancellation technology, which filters out things that are not required to be transmitted, not required to be heard, and primarily focusing on the conversation that happens between different people. And AI has made it possible for people to understand which is a human voice and differentiate that from, let's say, a fan that's running in the home of the remote participant, or the external, let's say, dog barking, kids playing around. We're all used to these situations in our day-to-day lives, right? So microphones are intelligent enough to differentiate between these today, and it is AI that is again helping businesses make meetings more professional, despite all the different setups that people are logging in from. So this is only, like I said earlier, this is only going to become better in future. And at Logitech, we are committed to making the meeting experiences of people as seamless as it can be, and as close to what it was until 2019 in a physical setup, which we call it nearly as good as being there.
Okay. Anand, can AI be integrated into video conferencing solutions to track performance anomalies?
Absolutely, Sukriti. So again, let me take an example. Let's say 2019, we all had these rooms, right? And we were struggling to book rooms because I'm sure we all have gone through this experience of just opening the door of a meeting room and realizing that there are a bunch of people sitting inside. We do not know how long is the meeting going to go on, and how do we book? Now imagine a situation, you have, let's say, a touch screen just outside that meeting room, the door of which we opened and saw a bunch of people sitting inside, and that touch screen is able to provide us data in terms of when this particular meeting that is currently on is going to get over, and more importantly, go the next step of helping us be able to book the meeting whenever the meeting room whenever it is available immediately after this meeting that's on, right? Today, technology has made it possible, and this is what the enterprises are calling as tracking the performance of solutions that they have deployed. Now extend. There are cameras, for example, that we have in our range that have the intelligence to understand who is the person who is walking into the meeting room. So when Sukriti walks into a meeting room, the camera has the intelligence to recognize Sukriti and go one step further to present only those meetings that Sukriti is part of, either as a host or as a participant. And in future, we envisage technologies like speech recognition being able to even allow Sukriti to just say join and being able to join in a meeting, right? And given that we all, like we discussed some time back, having to follow the post-COVID protocols of still socially distancing ourselves, and not crowding any meeting room, these cameras are also going to be able to provide that intelligence, and some of them are possible even today, in terms of telling key stakeholders in enterprises how many participants are sitting in a meeting room. Let's say there is a 3-seater room. If a 4th person walks in, these solutions are intelligent enough to send an alert to stakeholders saying there is a breach of COVID protocol in so-and-so meeting room in so-and-so location. How organizations want to react to that information, of course, will differ from one to the other depending on their policies. But these are all technologies that are already available, some of them coming in the near future, which will make it extremely easy for enterprises to track the performances of solutions despite the anomalies that are there. And in future, we envisage, Sukriti, that organizations will make decisions more and more basis data that is available to them through these solutions. And there are many analyst organizations that are publishing reports that people who are planning to deploy solutions can have access to. Some of them are free, downloadable, and it provides a very good view into the best practices some of the large enterprises have adopted to make themselves, the new normal ready, so that others who are in the process of deploying these solutions can benefit from.
All right. So Anand, you've already spoken about how it's going to change the entire performance anomaly when it comes to attending meetings and joining a meeting. For let's just say, very pertinent to it. I have the last question for you: that how can AI bring more reliability to the virtual interview room?
What better example than this podcast itself, Sukriti, right? You are sitting in a different part of the country, I am sitting somewhere else, but this virtual interview room that we both are connected to has made this discussion so easy and so effective for not just you and me, but for all the listeners who are going to hear this podcast whenever, right? This is the best example that I can think of. And what has made this possible is, of course, the AI, which has definitely become more reliable, and it is only going to improve further, as we spoke with all those examples. And look at one aspect of how this virtual interview room is being used by different stakeholders in within organizations. Once upon a time, interviews had to be conducted face to face, which means talent was also restricted to where these interviews could happen. And as hiring managers, each of us had a very limited pool to access. But now, with the adoption of technology and the virtual work culture becoming all pervasive, I don't think there is any boundary to where we can access talent, right? Work has moved to where people are, which means that talent can also be anywhere. And if there are profiles and roles that can be remotely executed and delivered from, why not? And all of this is possible because of, again, this concept of everything happening virtually. And the concept of AI has only helped all of these concepts to be adopted by organizations and at scale, right? And with cameras becoming intelligent, microphones becoming intelligent, there is very little that even people who do not have a great inclination towards technology have to do from their side. As we spoke, we had examples, people using different platforms. They can virtually connect any microphone to their laptop, any camera to their laptop. These cameras are so intelligent that they will be able to do a virtual handshake with the platforms without any action expected to be taken by the user. So we only see, as Logitech, we only see this reliability improving further, and the virtual meeting setup is here to stay. It is here to improve further, and technology is going to come to people's rescue by becoming more and more simpler, and IT teams are just going to love them.
Thanks, Anand. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for filling us with so many details of how AI is actually aiding the entire innovation at video conferencing for workplaces altogether. Thank you so much, Anand.
My pleasure, Sukriti. And if I can just before we conclude, want to offer a few tips to our listeners. Technology has become simple. Okay, we don't have to be afraid of technology any longer. It has become very simple to deploy, very simple to experience, and very, very simple to manage. As users, as people doing work from different situations and setups, what we need to do from our side is to choose the right tools and invest on them so that work is easy, irrespective of whether we are performing that from the comforts of our homes, or to give that additional experience for people on the other side, sometimes from the offices. So it's important to make those investments, and it is important to do a little bit of research and choose the right set of tools. If we are committing our time to do only these two, I can promise, being a user myself, that life can be much, much simpler. It can be far more effective, and the experience can be good for all of us.
Thanks, Anand, once again. Audience, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the conversation, had a lot of learning on how AI is actually aiding and revolutionizing the entire video conferencing for workplaces and bringing a lot of innovation. It's time for me to wrap up. I will be back with another super amazing tech podcast very soon. Stay tuned to TechGig for the latest tech updates and happening.